So, Tom, can I call on you to help us out and shift the order a bit? Tom Stainer, are you feeling up to giving your presentation next?
Yeah, I can do that.
That's very kind.
Is my audio okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Give me 1 second just to share my screen. So this is a piece of stonework that I carved quite a few years ago for a competition that was under the title of Rainforest, and I was inspired by the words of Graham Hancock. It's the first time I'd ever heard someone use the term lungs of the planet. So in light of this symposium, I was inspired to write this poem, I guess you'd call it. So yeah, it's called The Mother of All Children. My children, when you can no longer hear my words, will you heed only my warnings? You have forgotten me in the screech of the owl. When I kiss your cheeks in summer, whose lips do you feel? My wailing in the wind falls upon death ground, you are orphaned to me. Like all children, you are ignorant of your mother's life. You scrapbook together stories you've gleaned from the tatters of my tapestry. You do not know the eons I spent in utter darkness dreaming of you. How I had to coax the very stars just to seed your birth. The ferociousness of my labor was of a violence incalculable. Its shudders still stir you from the depth of your dreaming. I was waiting as mother spider in the earliest and oldest of all webs. I wove the threads of infinity one upon another and charged the fate frayed edges. Pinocchio did not pluck at strings nor make mockery of miracles. If you cull my wolves, the rivers will shrivel. If you gas my bees, all beauty shall be gone. If you supplant my soil, pestilence shall be your harvest. When you blacken my oceans, death shall court your shores. My lungs will cause the ice upon my breast to run, and the heat from those tears shall drown you all in the fires of my unfathomable rage. Children, I have been here long, and long shall I be here after the brief flicker of your adolescence is extinguished. Children, when you will not heed my warnings, how shall your mother keep you? The breath you breathe, the dreams you forget, the songs you keep, the whispers you've wept, the warmth you've stolen, and the coldness you own. I know it all, sinew and bone. When you call for your mother, call not alone. Whenever there was love, like the memory of home.
Tom?
That's that.
Let's see if there are some raised hands, questions, comments for you. It brings us back to the question that Mirko raised at the beginning in terms of, you know, the representation of the voice of nature, of the more than human. We can't, but we must.
Yeah.
Tom, it's a shame that actually your sound wasn't great, but we still managed to get the voice, and we could hear, 95% of the words. It's not ideal for poetry to be kind of struggling with the sound, but it just struck me as it felt very biblical. It felt actually very the anger in there was palpable. And the language just felt really beautiful. We've probably got time, and I would love to hear you read it again if we've run out. When we run out of questions, if there's time, it would be lovely to hear you read it again. Maybe we'll see.
Theo has her hand raised.
Thank you. I was wondering which came first, the words or the stone, and also wondering what kind of stone, where it came from, and what inspired you to make it like that.
Yeah, good question. The stone came first. So I did the stone many years ago.
Yeah, I think
it's a bath stone, so pretty local to where I used to live in Dorset. And just what really inspired it was the words I heard from someone I look up to as a role model, as Graham Hancock, the lungs of the planet. And I just wanted to find a way of, making a tree and nature and lungs all look intertwined to be the same thing, because we rarely look at the earth as a body. So that was my idea there. I think that answers it.
Thank you.
Matt.
Thanks, Tom. I like Richard. My first thought was actually, to be honest, with poems, I almost always beg to hear them twice anyway, because it's like the first time, I feel like if I'm really listening, I get 40% the first time. You know what I mean? And but I also, there's something about I felt like you brought something very honest into the room, and you were just, there was a kind of willingness to just stick your neck out and say what's going on in here, what you're carrying. And then, so the kind of questions it raised for me, I want to bring, like, as someone also having the same kind of questions, not trying to sort of in some way catch anything out, but I was thinking of, it really crystallized for me with David Attenborough. Well, it was one example. David Attenborough's recent Extinction, the Facts, and maybe it was in his Witness one that came out at the same time. And he said, he came out with this proposition that until 30, I could do it in his voice, until 30 years ago, we had no real appreciation of the value of nature in and of itself. This is all new to us, which is quite a radical thing to say, really. Which we didn't have an appreciation of the value of nature. And one of the things that happens over and over and over and over again in my hearing is we universalize this and normalize this as a human thing, a species thing. The children in question are sort of all the people. And I know it's probably real pedantry, but I keep wanting to bring it back to a cultural critique that we're critiquing, maybe insert preferred term, modernity, civilization, global north, I don't know what, and I'm probably going to talk myself into all kinds of corners I can't get out of. But I didn't just want to bring that to it like a kind of, like some sort of quizzical question time, raised eyebrow. I meant it more like how you inhabit both those worlds at once, where you can write honestly from the heart, you can put something down. I thought the stone piece was very powerful as well, except for thinking of that. But I wondered how you get on sort of balancing those two different needs, to be honest, to be critical, to hear yourself, be able to speak honestly, but also notice what's shaping you and informing you and questioning that.
Yeah, wow, that's a good question. I think what it usually is I'm trying to think of the perspectives. I'm trying to think of the perspectives, like what you mentioned earlier with David Attenborough's comment comes from this kind of modern secularized vision of a kind of reductionist outlook of the world in a scientific way, that it's just inert matter in some sort of this Iliad kind of way. And then I think of that, and I think of the perspective of what would an ancient mother of all things feel like, and I think about my own mum, and I think about that archetype, but I think about it in some sort of, and then I try and put my mind in like a grand scale of, what does a million years feel like, and birthing something like that, and how would you begin to feel about that kind of child, and then I guess in terms of the perspectives of different cultures, maybe it's quite apt that it's called children, because maybe indigenous cultures, or let's say cultures that do view Earth as a body as much as as rather than something inert. Maybe they're not the children, maybe they're the elders, and it's not addressed to them, and it's not addressed to cultures that perhaps perceive the world in a more numinous light, because the message isn't needed for them, and yet we share a collective. We're the child psyche sharing the adult psyche in the form of human, and we're sparsed over the earth. And so I usually just try and gather all of those different feelings and perspectives, and also looking at history, and just try and churn out something, not churn, produce something real, just something from the heart that's trying to hold all those things together in a quite a funny way. I hope that kind of answers it.
That's great, and it sort of clarifies the question itself for me, which is not one, like I said, about trying to catch anything, not trying to catch you out, because actually what it also is for me is it's a kind of testimony of hope for me, because it's like, yes, I'm a product of kind of English modernity, I tick, 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 and yet, we're all human, we're made of the same stuff, there's nothing that civilization can breathe in us that isn't essentially just a cultured layer in our being that can be uncultured, that can be unlearned. So that sanity doesn't reside just over there with those people, because they have this kind of rarefied indigeneity other than us, which is much more permeable.
We're all born here.
Yeah. We all sit wailing on the palm of a hand at one point, Yeah, thanks.
As someone who actually had a newborn baby sitting wailing on the palm of my hand a week ago, still attached to its mother, my daughter, I appreciate that image. We have got time, and there were at least two requests to hear the poem again. Tom, would you be able to do that? And I think if you stay quite close to your mic, that might.
So like here, is this good for everyone? This closeness of the mic?
Yes, I think it was partly because you turned your face down. So possibly that. If it's possible to read a little bit towards the screen, that might help.
Okay, I'll set this up. Okay, so I'm gonna screen share again because it feels weird not to do it. My children, when you can no longer hear my words, Will you heed only my warnings? You have forgotten me in the screech of the owl. When I kiss your cheeks in summer, whose lips do you feel? My wailing in the wind falls upon death ground. You are orphaned to me. Like all children, you are ignorant of your mother's life. You scrapbook together stories you've gleaned from the tatters of my tapestry. You do not know the eons I spent in utter darkness, dreaming only of you all. How I had to coax the very stars just to seed your birth. The ferociousness of my labor was of a violence incalculable. Its shadows still stir you from the depths of your dreaming. I was waiting as mother spider in the earliest and oldest of all webs. I wove the threads of infinity one upon another and charged the fates to keep these frayed edges. Pinocchio did not pluck at strings nor make mockery of miracles. Cull my walls, the rivers will shrivel. Girth my bees, all beauty shall be gone. If you supplant my soil, pestilence shall be your harvest. When you blacken my oceans, death shall court your shores. Burning my lungs will cause the ice upon my breast to run, and the heat from those tears shall drown you all in the fires of my unfathomable rage. Children, I have been here long, and long shall I be here after the brief flicker of your adolescence is extinguished. Children, when you will not heed my warnings, how shall your mother keep you? The breath you breathe, the dreams you forget, the songs you keep, the whispers you've wept, the warmth you've stolen, and the coldness you own. I know it all, sinew and you call for your mother. Call not alone, for never there was love like the memory of home.
Thank you, Tom. Was that a hand raised or a clap, Matt? A clap. Okay.
We've got time for another question.
Yeah.
Another thought. I was thinking Richard mentioned the biblical register. I agree. Blakean biblical, that kind of. And I was one of the people who's really influenced me in the last few years. You've probably heard of him. Do you know Amitav Ghosh? You guys come across Amitav Ghosh? He's a Bangladeshi writer or Bengali writer, novelist basically. But he wrote a critical prose book called "The Great Derangement: Climate Change and the Unthinkable," and it's a really brilliant take on the climate and ecological crisis and the relationship of empire to it. And, he then plays out the ideas in the book in his novel Gun Island, which is so it's really good to read them as a pair, really. And apparently his new book, The Nutmeg's Curse, is very good. But in The Great Derangement, so I'm trying to keep this brief, in The Great Derangement, he looks at the way in which the novel arose along with the Industrial Revolution and the Enlightenment. And they all came part and parcel with an ethic of plausibility, an aesthetic and an ethic of plausibility, that we inhabit a world of the plausible and the reasonable. And it renders us incapable of actually grasping or speaking about the magnitude and depth of the climate crisis. And he suggests that the old stories of gods, the old registers, the old fabulous stories that his South Asian co-authors were all keen to distance themselves from, the good modernist novelists, he's saying the old registers serve us much better, that the world is alive, if we understood what that means, is utterly terrifying, as well as a source of joy. It means it can change like that, everything. flick us off its back. It's to grasp non-linear climate change, for instance. The old stories of Kali might serve you much better. The model of the storytelling evolved by George Eliot. So it's that kind of, it's really good. It might give you a take on that kind of the voice you want to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, funny enough, one of the things that was instrumental in constructing the poem was I was thinking about Nietzsche's, famous line, "God is dead," and sure it's Nietzsche anyway, and thinking about how embedded, Abrahamic stories are in your psyche if you've grown up, in a Christian Western background. They're as deep as it goes, and that voice, the voice of Yahweh, the voice of God, that, like you say, characterizing that is, it twigs somewhere deep in the mind. And so I thought about, if God is dead, well, the mother isn't. You can kill God, but if you kill the mother, you're really done. And so I wanted to try and kind of put that kind of biblical, spin, but contextualized in the voice of the mother. But yeah, have it be old, archetypal. I would definitely read what you've.
I've not read much Nietzsche, but I did hear the passage that phrase, that so often quoted phrase comes from, and the passage is worth reading. It's something like, "God is dead and we have killed him, and there is not enough water in all the world to wash the blood from our hands," which seems to me a much more powerful statement than just saying God is dead.
Thank you very much, Tom, for reading the poem, and you're showing us the carving and generating that conversation.